Hello, LegendAqua here for my tier list for my favorite anime of fall 2020. Nearly forgot which season it was. So once again, I didn't watch that much, but for what I have watched, well, it's going to be interesting. Let's just say that. All right, so I believe first up is Higurashi. All right, so it has a second curse, so we'll get the last 13 episodes next season. But as for what I think about it, I thought at first it was a remake of the first season, but no, it's more like it's going through the route that the original, the first ever original Higurashi didn't get through. So we're going through essentially different routes for each character in which they haven't been through yet. And we're going to see the different outcomes of that. Interesting, but for where it's going, beat for beat, it is similar to the OG season. But I don't know where it's going for the next 13 episodes. I really don't. Obviously, in my opinion, they're going to go up to Rika's arc, and then resolving it through a different outcome. It's hard to explain because Higurashi in itself is like a huge web of complex timelines. But it's a B for now. It's a B for now. It definitely feels like Higurashi, but polished as well as everything else, but going through different routes. That's the interesting part about it. But at the best, I'll give it a B. Next season, when it's going to finish, obviously I'll give the results and how I feel about it afterwards. But for now, it gets a B because I don't know where it's going besides different routes. Next up, Wandering Stories of Elena, or Maji no Tabi Tabi. Yes, it's such an underrated gem because sure it has like not an omnibus format. It has like isolated stories in which the titular character Elena just goes through other stuff. But for the final episode that it gave us, it did wrap things up. And not to mention there's one episode that just pretty much sealed it. Although, when going into this anime, just remember, it's not all light and fluffy moe stuff. It has a dark edge to it. And there are a couple of stories that Elena goes through that has that edge. And therefore, for me, it just makes it an underrated gem in my opinion. It is one of those animes that I actually wanted to carry on watching as soon as the next week's episode was released. It's one of those animes that I just craved to carry on wanting more episodes, and to that end I wanted to have a second season, and from what it hints at the final scenes of the first season, it just might. Next up, Standing Upon 1 Million Lives. So this is a isekai anime, and at first I thought it was generic, but later on it actually got quite interesting. This is actually getting a second season, by the way, so that's saying a lot for how oddly popular it got. Again, I know isekai is it's getting saturated as it is, but this one was somewhat interesting because the gods that brought these characters in, well, the gods are kind of assholes, but the characters are the most interesting thing because we get to see them develop through the really harsh world that they're in, as well as the really unfair world. It's an underdog story, but a very interesting take on it. I'm gonna give it an A. it does have its merits, as generic as I first thought it was going to be. Next up, is it wrong to pick up Girls in a Dungeon Season 3? So this season took Dungeon to a new direction. I thought the Haruhime arc was different. This was something else. It pretty much gave us, well, let's just say, in the broadest of terms, it just gave us what would happen if the monsters and enemies we regularly kill in dungeon had a human thought. I think I'll leave it at that. The season takes up an entire arc, by the way, so it doesn't go into sub-stories, so the third season is nothing but what I just said. Interesting take, and I did like it. Just not as much as the Haruhime arc. The Haruhime arc, the previous season, actually caught my attention more. This one just took it in a new direction, which isn't a bad thing, but a B at least. Love Live Nijisaki High School. It's a long title name. The Love Live Nijisaki Club. Much like Dungeon's third season, it takes a different take on Love Live. And okay, I'll put it at B for now. Let's just keep it at that. It like with Love Live and Love Live Sunshine, it was all about the group kind of situation. But for Nijisaki Club, it's actually about the individual. It's mainly because the main cast on Nijisaki is essentially the backup or the R cards from the game, and they gave them fleshed out backstories and everything, so therefore it was more character focused and it was group focused. And because of that, I did actually see new sides to certain characters, because here's the thing, I've played Love Live School Idol Festival way back in the day, and I saw the R cards of these characters. So seeing them getting actual fleshed out backstories is actually pretty interesting as it is. As for favorite characters, because I do have favorite characters in Nijisaki, Karen and Setsuna. I'm that obvious. Alright, next up. Climbing Girls. Essentially rock climbing, competitive rock climbing anime, and it pretty much has the entire underdog story from a sports anime perspective. Yeah, that was a lot of things just to say about... I'm not gonna say generic, because it is essentially an underdog story about competitive rock climbing. Oddly enough, it doesn't warrant a C for me. It's mostly a B. You're gonna see a lot of the animes that I have. It doesn't... It's mostly decent. Let's just leave it at that. Next up, second season of Momouka. So this one actually takes place before the movie, and it follows essentially magical parasites in a ways. And okay, I know Momouka is a really controversial anime, seriously it is, but they toned it down for this season. I definitely know that. I think that's all I'm going to say in the matter, otherwise I'll be going to a lot of detail with this one, because it does get kinda crazy as it is. There is just one thing, however. One of the characters is essentially Chizuru and Ruka from Rent a Girlfriend merged together. I'm not kidding. They did that. It was... This is the hard part for Momouka, at least. It might just get a B. I don't think it doesn't deserve a C though. It was decent for what it was. Maya Osami is also a B. It's a It's a comedy anime where essentially a sleeping princess, where all she does is, once they have a good night's sleep, pretty much torments a demon castle where she gets held hostage. And let's just say that the princess herself is more like the hero than the actual hero that's trying to save the princess. It's that kind of situation. Good comedy anime. I know it's a little bit repetitive, but for how crazy that the princess, like, I'm gonna say the quotation marks, torments the demon castle residents, it's still funny. The comedic one-liners was actually probably the clincher just to make it funny and for me to carry on watching it. Next up, Guraburu, which is anime short on the Grand Blue franchise. To be expected from anime shorts, it's the comedic take on what Grand Blue is, because Grand Blue does get really serious as well as comedic at times. This is more in the comedic edge of it, and we get to see a lot of the fan favorite characters do comedic stuff. However, there's just one thing, like, this doesn't affect the grade for Guraburu, but I'm just gonna say, they didn't add Vera into the short, which is something I was expecting because she is also a fan favorite, but she didn't get into the anime short. Bummer. Next up, Adachi To Shimamura, essentially a shoujo ai anime, and I wanted them to go all the way, but they didn't. They expected from a shoujo ai anime. They essentially gave us Yuri undertones all throughout it. And expected from hormonal teenagers and everything, but yeah. I wanted them to go all the way through, but they didn't. But Yuri undertones, I'm fine with that. Next up, I'm gonna call it The Rise of the Crusade. I think this is the one that actually warrants a C. I was expecting, like, it's a political fantasy, military, romance anime. I know there's a lot of genres to put in, but that's essentially what it is, because it's a Romeo and Juliet story, essentially, just with magic and military involved, and battle scenes are fine. They tease the romance on the main two characters constantly, and fine, coincidence and whatnot, but that drives the story forward, so I give it that. But this is the anime where I say it's base generic compared to 100, not 100, Standing on a Million Lives. That was unique. This one just felt base generic because I thought it was going to go somewhere, it just didn't. Besides entire conspiracies on both factions, but that's about it. There's not much to it. Next up, third season of Is This a Rabbit? Easy A, because essentially what Bloom does, which is the third season's subtitle name, it gave us more of the relational friendship between a lot of the cast, and they gave spotlight episodes towards those relationships, and that was wholesome as hell. And to that end, they gave a lot of focus towards Rize, Kokoa, and Chia a lot, as well as Chino. Like, the entire cast gets a lot of development through the relationship focus. And for me, Best Girl Rize got a lot, so it was wholesome as hell, so to that end, yeah, absolutely. Lastly would be Ochikobore Fruit Tarts, or Dropout Fruit Tarts, which is, I'm gonna say an underdog. It's an amateur underdog idol anime where dropouts on a certain agency where there's like a failed musician, a failed model, a person who just got into the agency, and a failed child star who pretty much forms an idol unit. Therefore, drop out fruit tarts. I did pick this up because of Curve Fantasia, because they were doing a debut release on the series through the game. I picked it up, it was fine, expected from the copy and everything. They had chibi animation at times for the comedic moments. I did like Ho-Ho, who was their manager, who was pretty much the greedy manager and everything. It was different, and Moe, but I think that was all. Love Live did better. Hell, Is This the Rabbit did better than what Fruit Tarts did. It's not bad, because if it was bad, it would be on F. So yeah. Overall, was kind of expecting this kind of tier list to be really small, because I didn't watch this much this season, because I was busy with a lot of mobile games, to say the least. But, obvious winner, Elena, a really surprising anime and underrated gem. I want this to get a second season. Standing on Million Lives is getting a second season, so I'll be interested in that. If Is This a Rabbit will get another season or another movie, which is completely likely, because it's a really good IP as it is. So I'm expecting it to get more movies or seasons at some point. And I think the loser becomes Last Crusade, this one, unfortunately. Ochikuburo Fruit Tarts is close, but Last Crusade gave me the least. It gave the most generic meh for me. Alright, so I think that does it for this tier list. Comment below what you watched this season, as well as your favourites, I guess. And I think with that will do it for me. LA out.